So this is a rough video of my NAMI speech because I haven't done it since December, really. Sometimes we would do our speeches sitting down, especially if we're with a psych group. Sometimes we do them standing up. Right now I'm just choosing to sit down. Hi. Sorry, my voice is going out a little bit, but hi guys. My name is Andy Chrisman, and I am here today with NAMI Central Virginia. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots effort for helping people with mental illnesses and their family members. We provide advocacy, research, and support about serious mental illness. Members of NAMI include people who live with mental illnesses, which includes me, family members of people with mental illnesses, doctors, police, EMS workers, community members of any type are welcome to join. We also offer a variety of programs like support groups and classes, and you'll see on the handout for more information about those, and you can contact us to find out when they will be. They are all free of charge, regardless of whether you're a member or not. But if you would like to join NAMI for people who have a mental illness like us, it's only $5 a year. And just membership lets us get grants and help affect policy more, the more members we have. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Andy. I am 40 years old. I have lived in Richmond for most of my life. I have been with NAMI for the past 10 years doing this mental health advocacy. I'm a very geeky girl. I love video games. I've played a lot of video games in my day. And by in my day, I mean yesterday. Playing Stardew Valley right now with my husband. It's really fun playing co-op or individually. I do have a degree in digital media, which is graphic and web design, but because of my disability, I got out of the field, and so now I focus on advocacy. And I have this passion for advocacy. I really love what I do, and I get a lot out of it. I always say it's kind of like a runner's high, which I'm not sure what that's like because I don't run, and if I'm running, you should be running too. So one interesting fact about me is I have a collection of over 500 rubber ducks. So I brought a couple with you guys to show you. In honor of Halloween, I've got a little cat dress-up rubber duck, a little pumpkin. I've got a vampire rubber duck. It's kind of shaped very hexagonally, or it's very flat. And this is usually my mental health awareness rubber duck, but it has been moved because we are currently moving our furniture around. Usually I have my mental health awareness rubber duck, and I say, and of course my favorite, the most important one, the Stop the Stigma mental health awareness rubber duck. So we're gonna get started. This program is divided into 3 sections, which is what happened, what helps, and what's next. Between each section, we'll play part of a video for each section, and after that section is through, we will pause it and tell you our story about what happened, what helps, and what's next. And after that, you can ask any questions, or if you have anything you want to share, you can go ahead. So does anyone have any questions about the program before we start? All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Play. So what happened with me is I started struggling with my mental health when I was in high school. I was, as I said, I'm a very geeky girl, and I was at a young age too. I started making websites in middle school. My first page being a Hanson fan site. If you remember Hanson, yeah, that was my boy band. I was really geeky. But yeah, I actually then created like a blog, what we would call it now, and just had the general high school stuff, boys and clothes and school and whatever was going on. But as the year continued on, my thoughts became darker, and sadder. And I started dealing with suicidal ideation where I wanted to die, but I didn't have an actual plan to go through with it. I was just being cyberbullied, though, throughout all of this. I had anonymously people, well, I later found out a group of girls from my school leaving messages on my blog like, you aren't really depressed, you're just doing it for attention, or the world, you should just kill yourself, no one will miss you anyway, or the world would be better off without you. And I went to 2 adults about this. My friends told my guidance counselor I was self-harming, and she called me in the last 5 minutes of the day, and I was scared. I thought I was in trouble. So she sat me down and asked, are you cutting? And I said, no, which, if I'd rolled up my sleeves, she would have been able to see. But I said no, and she goes, okay, you can go get the bus. And that was the entire conversation. The next time I went to my mom because the cyberbullying got so bad, and I told her about everything that was happening, and she was like, we're going to get you in to see a therapist. And then we never talked about it again. This led to PTSD from all of this invalidation, and I don't have them anymore, but I used to have nightmares where I would wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh my God, did I do my homework? Or, oh my God, am I going to miss the bus? Which obviously I didn't have to catch a bus, but I would just regress to those times at points. So because of all that, I stopped talking about my mental health. I mean, it seemed like nobody cared anyway. So I started also self-medicating. First with pain medication, and I found out alcohol was easier to get, so that's what I turned to. In 2010, I had a complete breakdown, and I overdosed and had a suicide attempt. My liver completely failed. I had to be transferred from one hospital to a local one in Richmond because at age 25, I needed a liver transplant. And because the liver can rebuild and refunction through some sort of miracle, my liver came back on, basically. It, started working again, and you would think with that happening, you would so much more value your life, but I got so much more worse. My substance abuse just skyrocketed. I had multiple more suicide attempts. I was hospitalized almost 20 times in 2011 because of either suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, or accidental overdoses. And I was just everything I was doing was so self-destructive, and I was self-harming, I was shoplifting, not anything I needed, just like craft supplies. And I just did not know what was wrong with me. And so I'm seeing a therapist, and she suggests that I might have what's called borderline personality disorder, which is ridiculous because I have a great personality. So yeah, I do have BPD. Some of the symptoms I've struggled with are impulsivity, mood swings, struggles with self-identity, struggles with boredom, fears of abandonment, feelings of emptiness, and a social paranoia, like always thinking other people were talking bad about me. So my therapist suggested I buy a book on it and read up, and I decided to start highlighting anything that I agreed with. And I was often highlighting with a yellow crayon while inside of a psychiatric unit. But in the end, I just had a yellow book. Everything was so relevant to me. And so finally, while I was in the hospital, I was officially diagnosed with BPD in 2011. And for me, it was really validating to actually get the diagnosis, because it wasn't like Andy's just messed up. It's, oh, I have a diagnosis, and there are symptoms and treatments and coping skills that can be used. So that really did help me, but I didn't know what coping skills I was supposed to do, and I was so desperate for help. If they had given me the number for the local witch doctor, I'd be like, okay, what, do they take insurance? What's the number? But they did not suggest voodoo. They did suggest dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next section. I would say I am in recovery from BPD. It's not my only diagnosis. I do still struggle with depression, anxiety, CPTSD, and ADHD, you know, the whole alphabet soup, because apparently you never get just one mental illness. And that's generally what's happened with me. If I am with police officers, I usually share that I have been TDO'd twice, a temporary detention order where you're taken into a psychiatric unit by the police. I did not have any problems with it. I understand I am a pretty white girl and there are systemic problems, but I did not have any problems with the police. I was never handcuffed or anything, but I know that police need to be more vigilant about how they take care of mental health patients when they're doing their job. And then I would be like, okay, does anyone have any questions? And I would answer questions. At the psych units, I never pulled the answers out of people, but if I was at like a professional thing, like with the EMS and police officers, I'd be like, okay, come on, one of you have to have a question. Nothing, you guys don't have anything to, you know, and try to pull answers out of them. On a psych unit, I would never do that, though. I will ask a couple of questions, but if nobody answers them, then I go, okay, and move on. And then I would just be like, okay, no questions. All right, let's watch the next section. Okay, now we're moving on to the more fun part, which is what helps. As I mentioned in the previous section, dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, was incredibly helpful for me with recovering from BPD. The way it's been explained to me is that with BPD, you have a trauma and you stop emotionally developing. This usually happens when you're pretty young. And so because you don't emotionally develop, you don't, you know, learn the things that normal people learn while they're growing up. I always say that I wasn't an adult until I was at least 28. That's around the time I started doing DBT. I probably still wasn't an adult yet, but now I am. So DBT is very intensive therapy. It requires a lot of work, but it's divided into multiple parts. You have individual therapy. You have a diary card that you track your emotions every day. You have homework each week, and you also have group. And group is more like a class than it is like a group therapy session, though you will be sharing some stuff with the group. But when my therapist told me about the group therapy aspect of BPD, I said, hell no, I won't do that. But I was desperate, and I finally agreed to go, and it really made a huge difference in learning those skills that I didn't have because of the lack of emotional development because of how I grew up. I don't do DBT exclusively now. I do see a therapist usually every other week, or, you know, depending on how things are going, it might be every week, or I might need only every month or something. It just depends on what's going on. I also see a psychiatrist every 3 months because my medicine has been pretty stable for quite a while. But if I need to see her sooner, then I call her and schedule an appointment. So a couple of things I suggest with medications that really help me. Well, one, I have one of the Saturday to Sunday boxes that I fill out each week. I fill up with my meds each week. And it actually gives me a little sense of pride when I sit there and fill all of them up. And I'm like, I'm doing well. Things are organized and good. The other things I do with my medications that a lot of people really like to hear about is that I paint the tops of all of the medication bottles. So when I look at them, I can easily identify which one is which. Or if something happens and I'm like, to my husband, I'm like, can you go grab me this? And, you know, he knows, he's usually just like, what color? And I'm like, blue or whatever. And so that's the color will go with, and that really helps organize them. And the final thing I do with my sleep medicine, especially, is when I take the pill, I turn the bottle upside down. So if I wake up or if I can't fall asleep and I'm like, oh my God, did I take my sleep medicine? Did I? I don't know. I can tell if the bottle is upside down. And also on the painted cap for my sleeping medicine, I have puff paint and I have a Z on it, like Z, 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 like you're dreaming. So I can also feel it in the dark. So those are things that are really helpful with organizing medications. A really good coping skill to know about is HALT. HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So you ask yourself, am I hungry? Am I lonely? Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? And then I can check in with myself and figure out if that's what it is. I'm sure you guys remember those classic Snickers commercials where it'd be like, they'd have all the Hollywood divas. It'd be like Betty White and a bunch of dudes, and they're like, they give Betty White a Snickers because she's being mean, and then she bites into it, she turns into the regular guy, and they're like, you're not you, and you're hungry, or if you're hangry. So yeah, eating is very important to your emotional health. Another thing that I like to do that helps me is grounding. If I am way like too in my head and thinking about like, what are we gonna eat for dinner next week, and what about that time in 7th grade that girl gave me side-eye, and I'm all up here and I can't focus and just be in the moment, what I do is I count colors. So I pick a color, yellow, and then I just count how many yellow things I can see. And it doesn't really matter the number, it just keeps your brain like focused, being in the moment and noticing your surroundings. There's also always another really popular one is name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. And while you're going through that, that slows you down and keeps you in the moment. One coping skill that I used to use a whole lot, I don't need as much anymore, is temperature change. And the way I would do it is, this worked especially well if I was having urges for substance abuse or self-harm or anything. I'd go and grab 2 ice cubes and just hold them as long as I possibly could over the kitchen sink and stop them. And that just would kind of give a shock to my brain and allow me to kind of come down from whatever emotions and urges I was having. Another really important one for me is doing breathing exercises and relaxation exercises. So one that I really enjoy that a lot of people haven't heard of is buzz breathing. And the way you do that is you inhale as much as you can, and then when you exhale, you hum. So and you can also, if you cover your ears when you do it and close your eyes, it's kind of like you're in a little isolation chamber. And you can also work with the pitch to what feels most comfortable. So I can't go high. My voice still isn't back all the way. Another one that I do is progressive muscle relaxation, and that I usually start with my toes, and you go up through your body through each muscle group, and so like these are my toes, I'll be like tense, relax, and then further up my foot, tense, relax, and then I just go up my legs and go up the rest of my body and then through my arms, and you'll even be like doing your face, so you'll make funny faces like kind of squeeze it all up. But when you do that tense for a second and then relax, let go and relax, that can really help with just getting rid of tension in your body for me. Another fun one I have is my friends and I have a social safe word, which is cupcake. So if we're at a party and something's going wrong, I might go over to my friend and be like, hey, or, in a group thing, be like, hey, Kyle, I don't know why I said Kyle. Hey, Kyle, you want to go get cupcakes later? And he'll be like, yeah, sure. And that's just the cue word for him to know, oh, I need to kind of get away and see what's happening with Andy. Um, and then, calm down or have our side conversation or whatever is going on that we need that for. So that one's fun. Finally, another coping skill that I use is just doing this work, doing this mental health advocacy work. I worked as a volunteer for 10 years, and I would get so much out of it, and I still do, and that's why I do this. And it's meant so much to me being able to form my own business and be able to do this after NAMI. Two other things I wanted to bring up. There is an easy number for the National Suicide Awareness Hotline, or whatever it's called, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That's what it's called. And it is 988. So like 911, but with an 8. 988. And you can call if you're dealing with a crisis, or even if you're not dealing with a crisis and you just need to talk to somebody, you can do that as well. A second thing is, this is a thing that's kind of going around that people are trying to promote, and I do too, is whenever you are in a bad situation but you can't say something, like you're around an abuser or something, when someone comes, if you do this, that means help. So you just take your thumb down and then you trap it with your fingers. And so if you're maybe on a web call or something, or a video call, I've heard of it happening where a woman was stuck in a car after being kidnapped. Just do the safe sign. Two other things I recommend is that you should, or well, I do at least, practice and this is going to sound silly, but practice your coping skills when you are fine. If you only go to them when you are already stressed out, then your body doesn't know what it's like to already be calm in those situations. You get the muscle memory. And I try to, practice for at least 5 minutes a day doing one of my coping skills, especially the breathing ones. And I feel so silly when I'm doing it, I'll be honest. But it really does make a huge difference if you practice the coping skills that work for you. And the second part of that is try all of the coping skills. And again, try them when you're fine. Because you might do something like the temperature change, for example, and be like, oh no, that did not help. So then you know not to go to that in the future. Obviously, that's not as easy of one to practice because you only need to use it when the urges really come up. But doing things like counting colors, another thing for grounding that really helps me, if I'm getting way too up in my head, I start going faster, I start talking faster, I start moving faster, is to just slow down and very slowly move with intention. And that will help me ground and calm down as well. So I by no means am all better, but now I have control over my illness instead of how it was before when my illness controlled me. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, well, let's continue to the final part of the video. What's next? Okay, so we're on our final section, which is what's next. For me, at least as far as business and career go, I'm going to continue working as a mental health advocate for as long as I can. I love talking about mental health and resources and everything. And through all these years, this decade that I've been doing this, I've had so many opportunities to meet people, to do stage shows. I've done blogs, I've done articles, I've done crisis intervention team training, which is where we go train the police and EMS workers. Also, I just want to let everyone here know, if I was in a psych unit, and one thing I do want everyone here to know is that if you are having a psych emergency and someone needs to call the police, you can request a crisis person. So you can be like, I'm in a mental health crisis. I need someone who is trained for that. Because we do try to train our officers to better be able to handle mental health emergencies. Career-wise, the most exciting thing that I ever did, biggest thing I guess that I ever did, was back in 2016. I was asked by the website The Mighty, which covers a variety of health conditions from like a personal perspective, not from like a clinical perspective. But they had just released their mental health on The Mighty, and their first Facebook Live event for mental health on The Mighty was me doing a speech about my mental health. And if you go back and watch it, it's embarrassingly bad because I hadn't been doing the speaking very long, and I was incredibly nervous. And I got about 300 to 400 people watching live, which was really cool. But then a month later, I had almost 20,000 views. Internet famous, kind of a big deal. Yes, but what's next for me is just continuing to work on my mental health and continuing to promote advocacy and positivity and just doing the stuff that I love at home. I've had a house for over a year now, and we are working on getting it all cleaned up and reorganizing, and we just got a new couch, which is exciting. But yeah, I just want to continue moving forward in my recovery, continuing to try to be the best I can handle each day, because some days are better than others, but I give myself the break when I need to. So at the end of this, I do want to finish up with a quote because it just means so much to me. I want to inspire. I want someone to say, because of you, I didn't give up. Author unknown. Thank you guys for having me today. Do you have any more questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. Make sure to take your handouts with you, and I hope you guys continue getting better. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. And then I leave. The end.